Welcome to my session. It's about security. It's nothing to do with the fancy stuff, and it's good to not to listen anymore to this music. I hope you enjoyed so far SQL Bits. I'm happy to present to you one topic which is really, really very interesting from my point of view. It's technology about how do you access or how do you implement cross-database access. If you want to download the scripts, then you find here the link. Otherwise, I will provide it over Twitter or will send it to SQL Bits organizers that you can download it. You don't have to write anything. You can have the presentation or what you want. This is me. Come in, it's for free. Yeah, come in. So forget about the commercial on the left side. Just only concentrate on my email address. So when you have any questions concerning database engine, or any database-related engine, just only drop me an email. I'm quite happy to answer it. I promise I will. So, and this is our agenda. Who of you is working as a developer here in the room? Please, can you raise your hand? Cool. Who is using multiple databases and try to access them? Oh, super. I think that's the reason why many people are here. Multi-database systems, mostly, so whatever, from what I have seen, suffer mostly from security concerns because the logins, users have definitely too much permissions. This is one point what I have seen. The other is the DBAs will hate you for your implementation of cross-database access, because what do they have to do? I have a system, I've seen a system with over 20 databases, and all the logins were added to every single database individually. What a nightmare. And think about when someone will leave the company, then they have to go through all the databases and remove it again. And that is something what I would show you how you can make it a little bit easier. So what strategies can be used to adequately protect your sensitive data? The first one is the easiest one. If you do it like this, then thank you very much for attending my session. Make your user a sysadmin and you're completely safe. And I promise everything, really everything will work. So we try to do it a little bit more granular. So for example, the typical thing is that we grant permissions to all databases. And I want to show you how to deal with this. I think it's quite easy, but then we come to, from my understanding, way more interesting options for you how you can solve this. Maybe DB chaining is an option for you, but that requires you to understand how the permissions are working in object chaining, and I have lots of demos for this. But maybe another option you have heard about is trustworthy. Set your databases trustworthy on, and then you're happy. I promise you, it's not. Yeah? It's a highly risk technology. And the last one, hello, yeah, come in for free. The last one, that is a very interesting thing, especially when it comes to databases where you say, we want to have users which need to use need to access the database for administrative tasks, backups, or see wait stats, all this kind of stuff, but you don't want to give them sysadmin privileges. This is a very, very common scenario I see in big companies, especially in banks. So, and that maybe is a part where you can use certificates. I love this technology and I try to use it quite often when I do some developments. Well, before we start, this is my scenario. I have two databases. One is the demo database, one is the customer orders database. What I will show in all my demonstrations is the following. The demo database is the database where the user, called Adam, has access to. Inside the database, I have two synonyms. The reason is I'm quite lazy to typing all the time. I use customerorders.dbo.customers. So why not use synonyms which address the objects in the second database, which is the customer orders database. So the synonyms get accessed by the user Adam. And when we are talking about cross-database access, well, think about this. Because I try to make it easy and try to put it into real-world examples. Think about this. You're living in a big, big, big house called a SQL instance. In this instance, you have lots of databases And every single database is a dedicated apartment. So that means you are living, for example, in the apartment DemoDB. You are Adam, okay? On the other side, there is Alice. Alice has her own apartment. And now think about the following situation. Maybe you are Alice. Would you allow Adam to come into your apartment whenever he wants, go to your kitchen, grab the sugar, and goes out? I would say no. In reality, or in real world, you don't want to do this. And exactly that is the thing how you should think when it comes to security in SQL Server with cross-database access. We don't want to access the... Komm ruhig rein. We don't want to access data in the customer orders without any control. So we must find solutions how Adam can access the data in the customer orders database. So here comes the solution number one. This is the easiest one, and this is the one I see definitely mostly deployed. And this is that we grant permissions to all the databases where the user should have access to. How does it work? Our user, Adam, is a user in the demo database, and he is accessing objects in the database which refer to the customer orders. When I try to do this, we want to have access to customer orders, but how does it work? I have a demo for this. I love demos, by the way. Grant permissions in the source database. So let's try this. I try to execute as the login admin, by the way, for the people who does not know, especially for development. If you want to test your security model, try it with execute as, and then you're in the role of the user, but not with your sysadmin privileges, which you have normally on your development environment. So now I'm Adam. Hi. And I try now, I'm in the demo database, and I want to access my customers table. Again, the customers, what I'm accessing here, is a synonym. It is not an object in the database, a table object. It references the customer orders. What do you think? Who will think, well, it goes? Nobody? Cool. I think really clear, because otherwise, when I'm talking about cross-database access, and it will work immediately, it will say, what is this session good for? Now, it will not work. So what you need to do is you need to read carefully what the error message says, because we have different tiers here. The select permission was denied on the object customers in the database DemoDB. So that means the security inside my own apartment is not sufficient. I cannot access the synonym. Okay, that is a mistake. But I'm a good developer. I see this, and I grant select permissions on this synonym. Do you think this will work? No. Okay, let's do it again. We try to execute as login Adam, and then I try again to access my table, but now there is a completely different error message than before. It does not tell you I cannot access the object. It says, sorry, the door next, Alice who is living next door, I do not have a key for this. I cannot access the database customer orders. That was clear because I have a safe environment here. Yeah. So what we then could do is maybe Alice is so kind and give Adam the key. But to give Adam the key, it requires that we have access to the database, and that can only be handled here in the way that we add a user to the customer orders database. And here we are again. I go into my DemoDB. Hopefully this will work now. What do you think? There's the error message. I'm so stupid, you know. Okay. I tried again, but now the error message is different from the previous one. It doesn't say, hey, you cannot come in. It tells me, sorry, you do not have the select permission on the table itself. That's absolutely clear. I only have the key. This is a funny thing, you know. You can insert the apartment, but you don't touch, and you are not allowed to touch anything. I would love to have this scenario with my kids when they were younger. Unfortunately, no chance. So, okay, we know what the error message is, so what we do is we go into the customer order and then we grant the user, Adam, the required permission to access the customers table and the customer orders table, and now we try it again. So come on, again, hi, I'm Adam, and now when I run the select, it works, but that is very clear. But that's the simplest way to implement cross-database access. But to be honest, now think about this. Let's say you have not only one login who needs access to both databases, you have hundreds of that. And believe me, many applications do not know the technique of Windows groups. Yeah, I have seen servers where you have hundreds of logins and hundreds of users in each database. What a nightmare, but that was safe for me as a DBA. So I could live from this 2 years. So, okay, so this is one solution, but this solution is not, from my point of view, not the best one from the perspective of the DBA. For you as a developer, that's quite easy to handle it. Yeah, you know your stuff, you know, okay, you need to have access, but that's all. However, so what we do here is we have two actions to do. The user, Adam, needs to have select state privileges on the demo DB, on the synonyms, but that is not sufficient enough. We need to grant access to the remote database, and we need to grant the permissions on the underlying objects. Okay, but not the best way. What about database chaining? This is a little bit more complicated now, but that makes it a little bit easier for you. What does database chaining mean? I hope that especially the developers here know about the technique of ownership chaining. Who have never ever heard about ownership chaining? Okay, a few of you. So the key word is chaining, so that we build a chain from different objects, and the cross-database chaining is a security feature that allows users of databases access to other databases, no question, okay? Beside the one they are currently using. Cross-database chaining is an extension of ownership chaining and does the same process, but over databases. Before I go into the problematic with databases, let me first of all show to the people who does not know what it means, a short demo how it will work.
There was a question, sorry.
There's a question. Oh, I didn't see it, sorry. Okay, what is the question?
Can you show on the first slide containing the link?
Oh, sure, yes. Okay? Okay. I leave it because I show my demo now. Good. Was it okay? Oh, sorry. The synonym is funny, yeah? You know I'm a security guy. I love to have encryption. Okay, good. Grant permission. So what is ownership chaining? Ownership chaining does mean that you give permissions on an object which is referencing an underlying object without giving access or permissions to that underlying object. That is a cool feature. I love it, and I wish I would have known about it 20 years ago when I was young and needed the money. Okay, so I go into my demo database. So what will I do? First of all, I create a table. This table, DBO addresses, actually nobody has access to but only me. What we need to know about this object chaining or this permission chaining is the following. When we check the ownership of that object, please note the following. The table addresses does not have a principal ID. That means an owner. This is null. So what it normally means, well, if you ask, hey, address, where do you belong to? It say to you, I don't know. Because we don't have one. I don't have parents. The reason is quite simple. I was executing this as a DBO. the database owner. And when an object itself does not have a specific owner, it automatically is owned by the next object in the hierarchy. And what is the next object over a table? The schema. So every object needs to reside in a schema. So what we see here is that we have a schema called DBO, and this schema has an owner. The owner is the user ID number 1, and this is always the DBO. So in total, it does mean that I can now build an owner chain. I can say that the table addresses does not have a specific owner, but it belongs to the owner of the schema DBO, and this is DBO. How funny. That is how it works. So now, when I execute again as Adam, I do not have access to the table because I didn't grant him specific permissions. So that means the select permission is not available. So when I was young, I was so desperate that I grant all the permissions to the table object to all users. That was back in the 90s, when I was young. Yeah. So normally, as a good developer, you would do it as follows, because from my point of view, the general development from my side is do not give permissions on table objects. Do not do. What I do is I create a view, the addresses, and then I grant select on that view to Adam. And when Adam is now executing this table, doesn't work. But when Adam will access the view, it works. Oh, there's a duck here, I hear. Walk, walk, walk. Yeah, okay. So, revert. Why did it happen? That's very easy. When we look to the ownership chaining, you see that the addresses in the table itself, it belongs to the owner DBO, but the view belongs to the DBO too. And that is what SQL Server is doing. It's great. SQL Server says, okay, if you have access to the view, then I give you automatically, if the owner is the same, I give you the permissions indirectly to the underlying object. That does mean ownership chaining. Okay? So, clear the kitchen. I've learned it from my mom to clean the kitchen whenever. So, and then we try to do that with database chaining in the same way. Database chaining is working with exactly the same technology. What it means is when we access an object from DemoDB, you see that when I run a select on the customers, it first of all checks who is the owner. If the table itself does not have an owner, we know it. We check the container, which is the schema. Who is the owner? The owner is the DBO. Now it gets a little bit complicated, but only a little bit. The DBO is not a user as you understand a user. The DBO is a representative. The DBO is a representative for the owner of the database. So when the owner of the database changes, the username does not change. Because the DBO then means, okay, my master is the owner of the database. And then when we know that the SA, in my case here, is the owner, we then try to access the object in the other database. And that goes this way. Hey, I am the SA. Does this apartment belong to me? Is that the same? Is it in my area? Yes, it's yours. Oh, thank you, I can get in. And then we go down to the schema and checking, does this schema belong to the DBO, so to the owner of the database? Yes or no. And if it belongs to him, then it say, is the owner of the database the same as it is from the original database? Yes, we are. Thank you so much. Then I do the select on it. The very, very cool thing here is one. You will see it immediately when I run the demo. You remember the first solution. In the first solution, I needed to add Adam to the customer orders database, but, and that is essential, I needed to grant him permissions on the objects. With ownership chaining, you don't have to do. That is the benefit. Let me show you how it works. Database chaining, thick fingers, make it so. So everything is reset. I go into my own apartment and I try to execute as Adam. And again, I get the error. Okay, good. I think it's clear. Revert. No chance. So now I need to see what is the owner, or what are the owners of my two databases. You see that the owners are exactly the same for both databases. That is a must do, otherwise it will not work. The owner of the database is represented by the DBO inside the database. So you see this here. Internally, the DBO is the owner of the database. Good. Now, now comes a very, very long query. A very, very long query, but good is we have 50 minutes time. And this query, it does a very simple thing. It shows you all the objects in the hierarchy, and we want to see who is the owner of the specific object. You see the customer orders database, the owner is the SA, and so in this case, it's automatically a DBO. The schema DBO belongs to the DBO. Perfect. The customer orders table itself is in the schema number 1, which is DBO, so the table is from DBO. In the demo database, it is exactly the same situation. You see that we always reference the DBO owner, and that makes it very easy for us. So what I now have to do is two things. First of all, I need to set the DB chaining on. By the way, notice this, it's very, very important. You can set DB chaining on server level. Don't do this. That means that you can access all the databases. Do it only on the specific databases you want to grant access to, not on a server level, please. So now it is on, and you can check it in sys databases. Now you see what databases has DB chaining activated. Try it again. Adam is coming, saying hi, and wants to run it. But now you see, oops, it cannot access the database. Stop. Uwe told us that DB chaining is a solution which helps for everything. But why can Adam not get into the customer orders? Well, DB chaining does mean that you can access objects in the other database, but what do you need before? Think about your apartment. Alice is living next door. You want to have sugar from her kitchen. What do you need? You need to have the key to get into the apartment. And this is what Adam has not. Adam is only represented in the demo database, but not in the customer orders database. So that is the missing key here. So I revert this. I go into my customer orders, or in other words, Alice hand over the key. Say, Adam, you now can get into my apartment. And now let's see whether it is working. Go. I execute as Adam, and first of all, let's see what the user token is. That means that defines what security, in what security, how do you say, a blackout. Long story short, you see you're acting as Adam. This is here at the name, and you're member of the public role. These are the credentials, what you, or the privileges you only have here. So now I try to select from customers, and it works. Maybe you have seen I have only handed the key to Adam. I did not grant access to the table itself. I only said, come in. And due to the fact that all the objects belong to the same owner, it works perfectly. But what happens if the owner chain gets broken? Then it will not work. And I do it with a little demo here. What happens if the databases has different owners? Let's say the SA wants to buy a Ferrari. It's quite expensive, you know? So what does it mean? He has to sell one of his apartments. And unfortunately, it's an apartment from Adam. So I go, the customer orders, sorry. So I sold it to another owner. The name of the new owner of the apartment is DB owner. This is a login in my SQL Server. So I think that you can understand what happens now. Due to the fact that the DemoDB is owned by SA and the customer orders is owned by DB owner, we have two different owners of the objects, and the chain is broken. And that means that Adam cannot even more access the objects. So when I go into with Adam, I try to select and say, sorry, select permission was denied on the customer's object because the chain is broken. He can get into because he has the key. But the object, customers, is owned by the DBO, which is another owner, and then it's broken and we cannot access it. What can we do? Very easy. The SA needs a boat, a big boat. So what did he do? He is selling the next one. He is selling DemoDB. And see what happens here. Now, the databases, both databases, belong to the same owner, and the chain is intact now. That means for me, well, now the system can work again. Seems very easy. For me, the good thing with DB chaining is, and that is the special thing, what I really like from it is that we do not have to grant dedicated permissions to the objects. The permissions got from the original, from the source object through the chain back to the original table object. That makes it very, very interesting. So I sell it back to the SA because he was driving his Ferrari, so no, it's not good enough. The ship was sunken, so we sold it back to him. And I set DB chaining off to get it back to the roots, how it was. Oh, there is a question. Can you show up the... no. Yeah. That was a derived look. Okay.
But I have another
yes, yeah.
The chain will also break if any underlying object will change its owner.
The question was, will the chain also be broken if any of the objects in the hierarchy will change its owner? The answer is yes. Absolutely yes. Yeah? So whether it is from a schema or from the object itself, wherever you have a different owner, the chain is not working anymore. Okay? Okay. Good. Okay. So, yes.
Do you see that anywhere in Management Studio that this exists? Like, if you give someone user access and maybe in 1 year you're not there anymore and nobody knows of that feature. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that is a very, very good question.
At some point, you're going to ask yourself, why is this actually working? He doesn't have any permissions.
Yeah.
So is it visibly...
That is a really cool question. Thank you for this. So the question was, is it anywhere in SSMS or in Azure Data Studio visible that you have a cross-database access security setting set? The answer is no. The solution is you can hire experts like me or you who are quite happy to analyze your system and say, yes, it works. Excuse me? Yeah, but he was asking for the GUI. Yeah, so with T-SQL, you have seen, and with T-SQL it can work. Yeah. Excuse me?
I'm pretty sure it's in database.
Well, yeah, there was a mention that that's correct. That is pretty sure that it is in the database settings in the GUI. That's right. But there is only that DB chaining is on, but nothing else. But you do not know the access paths from what user can access what database.
If you right-click the table, click on properties, and then where you can actually see all the access rights,
Yeah.
it could show something like
It could, yeah, but
user from database XYZ has access because
Yeah.
database changing on or whatever.
Yeah, what you can see, but this has nothing to do with this. It's what you see in the security is when you go into a login, then you can see the databases where this login has access to, because when you look into the membership, so when I look to Adam, I go to the user mapping, and here I see to what databases he has access. But that's all. I don't see what permissions the user has in what dedicated database. That needs another clicks. That is a problem. Okay, good. So far so good, easy. Do you love DB chaining? I love it, I love it, I love it. So, how does it work? Basically, when the user is only located in the demo database, it does not automatically, when you activate the ownership database chaining option, it does not mean automatically that you can access the database. What the user must have always is have an account, so a user account inside the database. That is the key to the luck. If you don't have it, you don't have access. The very good thing is, and this is what I like here, is that the user in the remote database does not need any more permissions. That makes it very easy for us as developers, and your DBAs will hug you every day. Say, oh, I'm so glad that you developed this solution, because it does not have to do anything more than only add the users or the groups. What is this chaining? Separation of data and access objects. The user does not need permissions on the remote object. That makes sense. The cons are the login must have access to the remote database. This is a step what every DBA always has to do, or the application is doing it for you. It will not work with different database owners, because then we break the owner chain. All objects must have the same owner. Any more questions so far? Because now we get a little bit more into the depth. Solution number 3. Database option Trustworthy. Raise your hands if you say, yes, I'm using Trustworthy in my databases. Okay, 1, 2. Are you working with CLR codes? Okay, good. Who of you does not know what Trustworthy means, because that's the reason why you don't use it? Okay, cool, good. Trustworthy is an option what you will see in the MSDB database. Your MSDB database has Trustworthy on. The question is, what does Trustworthy mean? From my point of view, with the MSDB, okay, that's Microsoft stuff. Let them do whatever they want, because it's their product. But if you develop security solutions and you use the option Trustworthy, this can be very, very, very dangerous. Absolutely. If you use Trustworthy and one of your users in your database can make himself a DBO, or if he is in the role of the DB owners, then you have an explicit security issue in your system. And this is why you should normally not give users access to the MSDB database. Even don't make them a DB owner in the MSDB database. Hallelujah. But then I'm there for you. For little money, I come to you and try to help. Try. Remember that try. So, what does the option Trustworthy mean? The Trustworthy database property is used to indicate whether the instance of SQL Server, that's important, trusts the database. What does this mean? Everything what's coming out of the database, SQL Server instance, say, okay, you're my best friend. Whatever you want, I do it for you. Keep that in mind. That is the danger here. By default, this setting is off because that's a security issue. And it can only be set, and that is something what you see here, why it's so dangerous. It can be set to on by using the alter database statement. So you need to run alter database, blah, 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 set Trustworthy on. And to understand that it is a risky thing, see the next bullet. To set this option, you must be sysadmin. Nothing else. Sysadmin. No DBO, sysadmin. It can be highly dangerous if the database owner has too much privileges. It's not about a user inside the database. This concerns the owner of the database. The owner of the database. To be honest, what I'm doing, what I'm seeing very often, and what I do by default all the time is, when I create a new database, who is by default the owner of your database? Thank you. It's by default the SA when you set it, or when you create a database with, and you're a sysadmin, then you are automatically the owner of the database. And when you're a sysadmin, then I can go out of the database, and then I can be this admin. Happy hour then. So don't use this feature as a common approach. It is only for very dedicated things. As I heard you using CLR, unfortunately for that it must be required. It's sometimes required. Don't use this feature as a common approach for multi-database solution. That is really not the best. Unfortunately, I see it very often because it works. When you ask developers, why are you doing that? Yeah, it works. Yeah, very funny. A user with a membership in DB owner database role, and that is the point, the security breach point, he can hijack your SQL Server. Because what can a DBO or a user in a DB owner role do? He can impersonate. You see this technique all the time in my demos. You see that I say execute as login, blah, blah, blah. A DB owner in a database can run exactly the same code with the user inside. And what user in a database, when I'm in a DB owner role, what user in the database is automatically, can automatically be distributed outside with the name of the owner of the database? DBO. The DBO. So when I'm in the role database owner, and I know this, the only thing what I need to do is this. Thank you, and now I'm out. And now I can take complete control of your server. When the owner of your database is this admin. Because we do not go with Uwe outside, no, we go with the owner name. And if they have privileged permissions, then you're lost. Maybe that was the reason for the bank crisis in 2008. Maybe. Maybe. The good advice, come to my sessions to learn how to make it safe. Good. So, how does this work? Oh, sorry, yeah. Here's the demo. Database option trustworthy. And before I go to this, you need to understand for the option trustworthy, the execute as statement. I think all of your developers, who is developing store procedures? Most of you, I think, yeah. It's a common thing. When you create store procedures, you have the option with execute as, you know? So, and we have three possibilities. Caller. Specify the statement inside the modules are executed in the context of the caller of the module, also of the store procedure. Self is the same as execute as user name. And then comes a very dangerous thing, execute as owner. And the option execute as owner does mean that we are executing the code inside the stored procedure as the owner of the stored procedure. Who is normally, when you do the developments and deploy it, who is normally the owner of a stored procedure? The DBO. So that means when you run it with execute as owner, then all the code gets executed in the context of the DBO. And now think about that, what I said before. If I'm a developer, I create a stored procedure, execute as owner, and then I run some funny things against the SQL Server, it will work when the database isn't trustworthy. Very heavy. Oh, sorry. So let's see how that works. Oh, good. Yeah. 11 minutes only? Really? Oh, you need to read my code faster. So go into my demo DB. First check. Let's see who I am. I execute as user Adam, and first of all, I want to see who I am in my database. And you see that in my database, I am Adam. And I'm member of the role public, so no specific permissions. Let's see who I am outside my database on the server level. And you see, well, yeah, I'm Adam. I do not have any permissions on the server side. I'm in the public role. Good. That is important to understand here. So now I do the funny thing, put it to trustworthy, and see what happens. Now, I again execute as Adam. I look to my user token, but think about this now. SQL Server instance now trusts your database that you have set on here. Oops. Do you see who I am? So I'm Adam, yes. But outside of my data, not outside of my data, but outside of my own array, because the database is set to trustworthy, from the owner perspective, it could be that I can act as DBO. Who is the DB owner role? Now it gets funny. Yeah? So what am I outside? Bang. You see this as A. Very cool. So Adam itself cannot go outside. But if we take the role DBO, then I'm outside the SA. These are the possibilities. I think this is really, really crude here to do it this way. However, let's see how it works. I'm executing as Adam, and I want to select from the customers. Goes. Hey, super. Why does it go? Why does it work? Very easy. Through the option trustworthy, we go outside. When there is an access outside of my database, we act as SA. So the SA goes now over to the customer orders database. The SA div is allowed to do everything. So it goes over and the SA can select. So no problem. And when developers discovering these options, they suddenly felt totally in love with it. Oh my goodness, that's so easy to do it. And then they develop with this option. And the DBAs will say, oh my goodness. And the security officer will dance joys for you, say, oh, very cool, a very unsecure system. I can blame you. Yeah, so revert. So what is if we create a stored procedure? So this procedure is very simple. I create the stored procedure, and I have to select inside. You see that there is no execute as, let me see, there is something I'm missing here, because, one moment, use customer orders, drop user Adam. I think that was the reason why it worked. One moment.
I think the database sharing still is on.
Sorry, one moment. Use custom. One second, please. Drop. Oh, come on. I think that I did not my kitchen work pretty well.
Yeah, it was on. The ownership training.
The ownership chaining, was it on?
The training.
One moment. Yeah. Sorry. Database chaining. Let's clear everything. Bam. Oh, what the heck? Why didn't you mention it before? Huh? Come on. Gosh. You know, there is a rule for every speaker. Do not change code before your session. So now it is done. And again, do this. Try it again. Execute as Adam. Hi, Adam. Whoops. It works. I'm in the customer order. That's so stupid. Use. What? It's live. Sorry. Demo DB. Go. Execute as Adam. Yeah. Now, Adam. Go. Okay. One moment. Grant select on. customers to Adam. Hey, Adam, you should have left in paradise, by the way. Customers. Yeah, I'm missing an R. Okay, now. You know why it is? Because I only have a few minutes. That's the point. So select. Yeah, can add access. Perfect. So that's okay, because I'm acting in the role of Adam. Adam is not a DB owner. That will not go outside, say, hey, I'm the SA. But the preferred way to access it, you have learned it, is by stored procedure. So I create a stored procedure, get customer. And then I grant execute to this to Adam. Do you think it will work? Yeah. 5 minutes to go. Okay. I don't ask silly questions. It will not work. The reason is quite simple. See the execution here. You see that we have executed as Adam. This is important thing here. We are executing the stored procedure as Adam, and outside the database, I'm Adam. I do not have access to customer orders. But the developer saw that and say, I read a blog post how I can make it possible. Set the database trustworthy on, and then create your stored procedure like this. You see the difference? I say execute as owner. So when I run this, execute it again as Adam, you will see now this, it works. Bang. But now, here, see this? I'm not even more Adam. So I look like Adam, but I'm not. I'm the SA. And you can understand now what happens when I put any bad code into this stored procedure. We run into trouble. So this is how that works when it comes to Trustworthy. So here is the recommendation. If you want to use Trustworthy, because it might be useful when you're using CLR code, or you want to use this technique for your developments, do me one big favor. Do not make the SA the owner. Create a SQL account, put it only in the public role, no permissions on your server. And then when you execute this stored procedure and you get outside SQL Server instance, trust this database, we trust him only at this login with the name DB owner. That helps. Then it is a good approach. Andreas Wolter, I think a few of you know him. He's a security expert. He's working for Microsoft now. He is recommending, and I love it, he is recommending to create for every single database a separate login and make this the owner of the database if it comes to Trustworthy. Really valid point. So I execute again as Adam. When I try to execute it again, it will not work because the DB owner does not have access to the customer orders database. So I revert it. So what I have to do is I change the owner of the customer orders to DB owner. Now we have both apartments belong to the same, and then it works. But I do not, what? No, sorry, yes, yeah, I think I did it. However, so yeah, thank you. So when I now execute it as Adam, I see here that it will now work again, without granting dedicated permissions for Adam into the customer orders. That's only because of the Trustworthy. So we come out as DB owner. The owner of the customer orders database is the DB owner login, and he's a DBO in the database. So that's how it works. That is the thing what you should take into consideration when it comes to security. How many minutes do I have? 2 minutes. Last solution, but I need to go quite fast through it, yeah? Unfortunately, I did some errors here with the blah, 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 and blocking, so on. Signed procedures, question to you. Who of you is using signed procedures to wow. Okay, why are you sitting here? So many people are doing that. That's cool, really. This is my absolutely top favorite to secure my database, using signed stored procedures, signed modules. I go very quick through it. What do you have to do? Signing does mean you create your stored procedure, and then you sign your stored procedure with a certificate. this certificate then is bound to a user where you give the permissions to. And the cool thing with this is when someone executes the stored procedure, it does not be executed under any user name, but in the name of the certificate. And that is really cool. Let me show this demo at least, because I really love it. It goes very fast. So here we are. To make sure that we do not any stupid things, I set Trustworthy off for all databases, so we are back now in the original thing. So what I do, how to do this. First thing, create your, I create your stored procedure. Whoop, done. Then I grant execute to Adam. Yeah, I hear it, I'm late. I know. So when I don't want to go too much into details with certificates, but long story short, you need to protect your certificate inside your database. So I protect it by a master key. I create a master key in my database. Then I create my certificate, which is protected by the master key. There are two options. I make it very short. I use it with the binary option. Otherwise, I need to create it, copy it, restore. That's too much. So I create my certificate, bang, and then I add a signature based on this certificate to my stored procedure. Done. So now my stored procedure is protected. I try to run it as Adam. And what you see here is, it doesn't work, by the way, it cannot work now, but what you see here is that I'm Adam, but look to this. This is interesting. This is the credentials of the certificate. So what we do then, and that's the last thing, we need to copy this certificate to the remote database. Important is you cannot use a different one. It must be exactly this one, because the thumbprint is what we compare to each other. So what I'm doing then is I go into my customer orders. Again, I need a master key here to protect the certificate. And then I create exactly the same certificate. Bang. So now, only make sure that it's not existing. Now I create a new user called data reader. And I grant the permissions to him, say, you are allowed to select from every table. That's it. When I now go into demo, think about this. Adam does not have access to the apartment, but the certificate. So I go execute as Adam, and et voila, bang. Cool? I love it. I love it. This is so cool, because Adam does not need to have any more access to the customer orders. We are completely free of it. Now we add our logins or our users only to our demo DB. And when they execute the stored procedure, we do not have to take care about whether he has access or not. The certificate will have the access. One little tiny drawback. When you alter your stored procedure, what do you have to do then? Resign it. Exactly that it is. So, and with this, I would like to thank you so much for attending my session. And I really hope that you enjoy security from now on. Any feedback is really appreciated. Just follow this link, 89989, better than 666, and have fun for the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.